Good afternoon, all starships in the Alpha, Beta, Delta, and Gamma quadrants. This is Josh Pritchett, head of the Northern Virginia Star Trek Beat-Up Group and commentator for Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Wishing you all a wonderful Sunday afternoon as we sit down for a few minutes before the Commanders get ready to take on the Philadelphia Eagles and discuss Star Trek Section 31. Well, okay, so this is definitely a different kind of Star Trek movie I think that we're used to, and we're going to get into that as we declassify Section 31 and talk about it a little bit. I look forward to seeing your comments. You can either comment here or on our YouTube page. We'll try to get back to you as we can. In the meantime, I want to go ahead and begin with a recap of the episode. Please note that this is a spoilerific review. So if you have not watched Section 31, please go watch it and then come back later. Okay, so with that said, let's engage. Okay, so the movie opens up in the Terran Empire universe, which, of course, as we sometimes refer to it as the Dark Universe, the Mirror Universe, what have you. And we see a very young Empress, she's not Empress just yet. Philippa Georgiou has returned to her poverty-stricken village somewhere in Asia. And we find out that young people from across the Terran Empire were brought into a battle royale type of contest. Think Hunger Games. Sorry. Yeah, it was a Hunger Games style battle royale. And it came down between her and a young man she was in love with named San. And the final test for Georgiou was she had to kill her own family. And because San could not kill his village, he was number 2 and forced to become Georgiou's servant for life. Georgiou was proclaimed emperor. And of course, we know the rest of her story. Then we cut to a debrief by Section 31 Control, which runs down a bit of her history. Her history as Emperor of the Terran Empire and what she was doing in Star Trek Discovery. So after that, we then find the Emperor working or running a bar in somewhere on the outskirts of Federation territory. This is, by the way, the early 24th century. And what we call the Lost Era, which is anything that happens between the end of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and the beginning of Star Trek, The Next Generation. So a lot of stuff that is referred to in various episodes of Star Trek, of TNG, DS9, or Voyager, this is where it all happened. Okay, so Georgia is running this bar, and she has an alien working for her named Virgil, who is apparently from the same race that we saw in the TOS classic episode, Let This Be Your Final Battleground, the people that were dark on one side and light on the other, which is a great euphemism for Philippa Georgiou. So there are apparently several people in the bar that want to talk to her, and Philippa already knows, based on her previous experience from season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, these are Section 31 representatives. And one of them, a guy who we find out later on is in fact a augment played by Omari Hardrick, has come to her with an offer that they want her to help Section 31 and on a mission. So she reluctantly agrees after some back and forth, but decides she's quite curious about why Section 31 wants her to come back. Now, remember, they have not seen her since before Kirk has before Kirk had become captain of the USS Enterprise. One of the crew members of this ragtag team is a regular Starfleet officer named Casey Royale. Well, played by actress Casey Royale, is a very young Lieutenant Rachel Garrett. Now, of course, that name is very significant to us because she will go on to become captain of the Enterprise C and will die in battle, saving a Klingon outpost, Narendra 3, from the Romulans in 20, 30 years. Okay, so they go on this mission to recover some lost technology, and it turns out that the technology is a weapon from the Terran Empire that Georgia constructed that would basically unleash a plague on several planets once it was activated. And the result was the man she had been in love with, San, who had been made her slave, had taken his own life rather than see her use it. Well, Philippa ordered the destruction of the device, but it turns out the device was not stolen. It was hidden in a secret armory. And basically the upshot of it is that it has somehow now arrived in this universe, and somebody wants to use it to destroy the Federation. Of course they do. So it's up to our ragtag team of Section 31 operators to stop this. And ultimately, of course, she finds out that it was in fact San, who she thought had died, but had actually faked his death in the hopes of, of stopping her, but also to get out from underneath her thumb and ultimately become the Emperor himself. Well, after a massive battle, San and her augmented sidekick and the rest of the gang of Section 31 triumphant. They destroy the device and close the doorway between the Federation universe and the Terran Empire universe once again. Okay, so now it's the time of the show when we usually get into the good, the bad, and the Gorn. So what I thought was good about this. Okay, so obviously Michelle Yeoh, I'm a huge fan of her work, even before Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or The World Is Not Enough. I've enjoyed many of her movies dating back to her days working with Jackie Chan in the Hong Kong martial arts film era. I have enjoyed a lot of her work, obviously, and was very happy when she won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I also like Casey Royale, or Royal. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing her name. Has Rachel Garrett. She was terrific. If we ever get to see Rachel Garrett again, or if we get something involving the Enterprise C, I hope she will be back to play that. I like the fact that there were callbacks to numerous alien races throughout this that we had not seen much of since the TOS movie era, such as there was one character who was a Deltan, which you've only seen here and there. And then we had one character who was a Comaloid. Halfway wondered if, when they originally were thinking about this, maybe it would have been set in the later 24th century and the character could have been a changeling. We don't really know exactly what the difference is between Comaloids and changelings. They're both shape-shifting races. If you recall, the Comaloid were shapeshifters. Kirk and McCoy encountered one that helped them escape the Klingon prison at Rura Penthe in Star Trek VI. It was played by the musician and actress Iman. We do know Comaloids oftentimes have very weird orange eyes that they could sometimes disguise. But other than that, I don't know if there are very many differences between them and changelings. I'd love to see something come up about that. If anybody has any ideas on what the difference could be between Comaloids and changelings, I'd love to hear it. Also was, I felt like, the character of Virgil, and I'll get into this when I get into the bad section. I wish they would have gone more into that character, but it was really cool to see, that not everyone from that species had died off. Um, I also like the fact that, we have the hint that there might have been more than one sleeper ship that escaped Earth after the eugenics wars. And clearly there's more there. So, okay, what I would like to get into now. Oh, and one last good thing I liked. I liked at the end how Control showed up, and it turned out it's Jamie Lee Curtis, um, Michelle's co-star from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that was nice to kind of have a small reunion between them. From what I understand, they became best buddies while filming the movie. So that was nice. Okay, now doing the bad part. What I did not like about this. Okay. Um, there was one thing I was very confused about. There was one character who was played by Sven Ryaguk. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. Who was supposed to be a Vulcan that had some sort of parasite inside controlling him. I thought the actor is terrific. I thought it was really interesting, but I just didn't like how the character was used. I thought it was just over the top. I thought the story was fairly predictable in, like, okay, who the villain was going to be. Kind of seen that before. Not sure how I felt about them cribbing from. I know there's been a lot of talk and online about, oh, this is too much like Star Wars. Well, I thought it was too much like the Hunger Games myself, but okay. I guess maybe it was a reference to the fact that our heroes had to use a garbage scow to save the day. Yeah, my friend Lily Sawyer said she didn't like the Vulcan either. And reference to that, yeah, okay, that might seem like Star Wars, but to be fair, if you go back to the episode Trouble with Tribbles in the original series, a Klingon does bring up garbage scows with reference to the idea that the Enterprise should be a garbage scow. But that's neither here nor there. I didn't really care about that so much. But I think that it felt like the whole story, and I'm going to get more into this in the Gorn and in final notes, was that this was like Star Trek the motion picture. It was more like it felt like a pilot episode that they had adapted into a 2-hour movie. Okay, like, okay, we're going to get into all these other characters. We're just going to have a big, flashy, action-packed pilot episode to get us started, and then we're going to get more into these characters. Okay, that's why movies are generally more self-contained than television episodes. Okay, you have to try to get everything you need about a character within these 2 hours. Okay, that's why, like, Justice League didn't work, because you had all these things about all the characters that didn't have a movie of their own leading into it, unlike Avengers, where almost everybody got a movie, or they came in somebody else's movie and you knew who this person was when we got to Avengers. Okay, so I didn't like that part very much. I really wanted more from these characters. Given the reviews, though, of Section 31, I'm kind of wondering why. I have a bad feeling we're not going to see more of that, and that's really disappointing because, honestly, as I said, I did like how they handled the character of Rachel Garrett. Garrett was, one of the great heroes of Starfleet history. Because of her, there was a Federation Klingon alliance. Yes, I know we saw the beginning. We saw the end of hostilities between the Federation and the Klingons, with the events of Star Trek 6, but the full alliance, the mutual defense pact between the Klingons and Starfleet happened because of her. Folks, if you're seeing me tilt my head, it's because I'm trying to get lined up with the camera. I'm not having a fit or anything. Just I'm just leaning one way, and I'm like, okay, sorry about that. Uh, okay, something's all right. I'm gonna try this. Sorry about that, folks. All the technicals of live streaming. What can I say? Okay. Um, I don't think that I think it's just more like technical matters, like obviously it like I said, it felt fairly predictable, and I just wish they could have done more with it. Um so now I'm going to get into the Gorn, where I'm going to talk more about this. Okay. To quote a famous song that's near and dear to all Trekkies' hearts, it's been a long road getting from the announced concept of Section 31 in late 2020, early 2021 to getting here. Okay. Initially, they did announce that Section 31 back in 2020 or 21 was going to be an ongoing series starring Michelle Yeoh, has a spinoff from the events of Discovery. They weren't really clear on the specifics. And then a few weeks later, it was announced that Section 31 had been moved to the back burner, that they would pursue it when they had wrapped up their other Star Trek projects. Because at the time, they had 4 going on. They had Discovery, Strange New Worlds was coming up, Prodigy, Lower Decks, and Picard. So they had 5 projects going on. They felt like that was too much Star Trek. To which I say, there's never enough Star Trek. How silly are you? Okay, so they decided to move it to the back burner. In the interim period, Michelle went off, did a little movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which she won Best Actress, the Oscar for Best Actress, and numerous other awards. And so, the fact that she was willing to come back and play this character one more time, at least one more time, I don't know, maybe she would like to play it more times, was really awesome. But yeah, it took a while, and of course she has numerous other film projects, including A Haunting in Venice and a few other projects that are going on, so they had to find time for that. And then there was also the fact that just lining it up, and like I said, this felt more like they took their concept for a pilot episode, and made it into a 2-hour movie. Okay. Now, this is kind of what I felt very disappointed about. You basically have turned this concept of Section 31 into Star Trek Mission Impossible. Okay, it's fun. There's a lot of action going on. I'm not hating this, but I'm not loving it. Okay. I don't love the idea that this is, it's all just action, and I when we first heard of Section 31 way back in Deep Space Nine, they were a secret intelligence apparatus that was so secretive no one had heard of them to that point. You had the regular Starfleet, and then you had Starfleet Intelligence, and then apparently you had this other branch of Starfleet that only higher up admirals and maybe a few political leaders like the president of the Federation knew anything about. Okay. But they were something that operated outside the boundaries of Starfleet regulations and Federation law in order to protect the Federation. Okay. Which made them, in my opinion, very questionable. At the time Section 31 was introduced on DS9, this was, if any of you are my age, you will remember that this was the 90s, and it seemed like we always had some TV show or something that had a big conspiracy subplot going on. you'd had the movie JFK had come out in 1991, followed by The X-Files, which went on to be the #1 TV show in America for most of the 1990s. You had numerous other shows that tried to replicate The X-Files, this whole idea of conspiracies, of alien conspiracies, of government conspiracies, and wrongdoings, and all these things going on behind the scenes. And so somebody at Star Trek got the idea, hey, why don't we have a ultra super secret organization hiding behind the wings on Star Trek? And it became something of a moral question about who has the authority to do things like this. What is the morality of when a secret organization does something like this? And it really makes you question these, because what we saw Section 31 on DS9, and then later also on Star Trek Enterprise, these were very questionable goings on. So, it comes down to what John F. Kennedy was going to, something he was going to say in the speech he gave on the day he was assassinated: who watches the watchers? And for years, I'd really wanted to see Section 31 expanded on. Let's talk more about this. Let's examine the morality of these people, what they're doing. And we didn't really get that with this. We simply got, like I said, a Mission Impossible episode set in Star Trek land. Okay. Well, that's fine. It's nice to have a little bit of action, but it would have been nice if we could have had some more expansion on it and asked these heavy moral questions, which Star Trek does very well. I mean, is it moral to have such an organization to do things like this? Does it make us more safe? Especially now that private companies in America and around the world can collect our data at the drop of a hat, that foreign governments that we owe no allegiance to can do it to us just by examining our Facebook pages or our TikTok videos or what have you. And that's pretty scary. The thing is also with Section 31, I've always wondered, okay, in a dictatorship, everybody knows about the secret police. Everybody knows the secret police are not a secret. But in a democracy like the Federation, Section 31 was supposed to be this big secret only a few people knew about. Okay, is that make us less of a democracy or more of a democracy because we don't know this exists, that we have this trust in the government that they would never do that? Those are things that I always wish to be asked, and that's one thing I've hated about the direction Section 31 has gone in the more recent iterations of Star Trek, is that now it seems like everybody has heard of them, which doesn't jive with what Julian said in DS9. We've never heard of you, and that's because the actor William Sadler, who played the Section 31 operator at the time, said, "We like to keep a low profile, Doctor," and it's so low, very few people had heard of it again. And sorry, I keep saying that, but it's just to make the point that that Section 31, it's kind of lost some of its meaning, I feel like. And that's not a reflection on the actors, who I thought the cast was overall very good. I might not have liked some of the characters, but as I keep saying, I thought most of them did a wonderful job in this episode. And I would have liked to see more of it. But I have a feeling that because of the negative feedback we're seeing with regards to it, I kind of have to wonder if we're not going to see that again. And I feel like that's unfortunate. So, but we can hope. We can hope that there's enough legitimate fan outcry that maybe we get something else. Maybe they'll make some improvements. I mean, even if you just kept it being about Georgia and Rachel just kind of going to the galaxy and getting in adventures, that would be fine. Also, though, I'll just say one last thing about the Mission Impossible aspect of the series. We kind of have already seen them try to do something like this before with Star Trek Picard. The first two seasons seemed more about okay, the aging Admiral Picard leading a ragtag band of Starfleet rejects who were going on these undercover missions to save the universe. And then it of course, we went back to having the Next Generation crew get together again, which is ultimately, let's face it, we kind of all wanted that anyway. Now that said, and of course, also I'll just as a shout out, the fan film series Star Trek Renegades, which was the same plot. I can see why, again, that could be construed as something like either Star Wars or Farscape or something like that, or Torchwood even. But I guess I was kind of hoping for something less Ethan Phillips and more George Smiley, the signature character of the late great John le Carre's books, which I highly recommend. Later today, run out to your local library, your bookstore, and get something. Smiley's People, The Spy Who Came In From Out of the Cold, that sort of thing. Or even if you want to, just look for the original Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy miniseries from the BBC, not the Gary Oldman movie from a few years ago. That was okay. The original one with Alec Guinness playing George Smiley, and our beloved Sir Patrick Stewart has his nemesis Carla. Sorry, I'm for the divergence here, but I'm just kind of throwing this out. I would like to, I would not be opposed if Section 31 had a sequel or a miniseries. I don't think it was supposed to be a movie. And I mean, this was, I think, the first attempt for Paramount to try to make a streaming movie, number one. Number two, a Star Trek movie that had nothing to do with any iteration of the Enterprise or any version of the Enterprise, for that matter, whether it was the original, the Enterprise A, the Enterprise D, E, or the Kelvin Timeline Enterprise. It just, it was fine. But I don't hate this in the same way that I've heard other fans didn't like Section 31. So I'll advocate. I'll give it about a C to a B minus. Not well executed, but for all that, I still think the actors, Michelle Yeoh and the rest, I think they did the best they could with the script that they had. I would like to see more of it. I just, let's face it, a lot of Star Trek shows have difficulty launching and gaining their fan bases, and eventually the fans come around anyway. So, if I was in the room Paramount, let's give it one more try, and let's try a different script and a different approach. And maybe get Jonathan Frakes to direct the pilot episode. But then again, hey, I want Jonathan Frakes to be in charge of all Star Trek. So that's probably not possible, but I'm just saying. Okay, folks. Well, listen, it has been really great talking to you all today about this. I'm sorry if I went a little long, but again, if you're watching us on YouTube or our regular channel, please give me your comments. I promise we'll try to get back to you as best we can throughout the week. And if you're watching us on Facebook, hit the stars button. It helps us to improve our content, and basically that way we can continue to improve and expand, and do more discussion shows like this on other subjects, not just Star Trek or sports or anything else. Thank you again, Lily. I appreciate the vote of confidence I'm getting there from my friend. And in the meantime, we hope you all have a great week. I will be back when season 3 of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds will debut with my usual partner in crime, Mr. Chris Babone. In the meantime, you can find me at meetup.org on the Northern Virginia Star Trek Meetup group. Just look that up again on meetup.org. You can find me under Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook. I did have an Instagram thing, but I rarely use it, so don't even bother with it, please. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Have a safe week. And go Commanders! Live long and prosper, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.